Three girls on a forest road. Mia, Rachel, and Sophie had been planning their weekend getaway for months. The stress of work, school, and relationships had been weighing on them, and a few days in a secluded cabin deep in the woods sounded like the perfect escape. Rachel was behind the wheel, driving along a narrow dirt road that twisted through the dense forest. The headlights barely cut through the fog rolling in between the trees. The GPS showed they had only 10 more miles to go, but the deeper they drove, the more uneasy Mia felt. "Damn, this place is isolated," Sophie muttered, looking out the window. The forest pressed in from both sides, thick and unyielding. "Are we even sure the cabin exists?" Rachel scoffed. "Of course. I triple-checked the Airbnb listing. Rustic, peaceful, and completely cut off from the world." "Great," Mia murmured. "Exactly how horror movies start." Sophie laughed, but something about Mia's voice made her pause. "You okay?" Mia hesitated. She didn't want to sound crazy, but she had seen something earlier, a figure standing by the roadside, just at the edge of the tree line. A pale face, dark hollow eyes. Gone in a blink. She had convinced herself it was just her imagination. Now, she wasn't so sure. A crack of static burst from the car's radio, even though it was turned off. The GPS screen flickered before suddenly shutting off completely. Rachel frowned. "That's weird." Then the car sputtered. The headlights flickered once, twice, and went out. The engine died. Dead silence. Sophie let out a nervous laugh. "Okay. That's creepy." Rachel twisted the key in the ignition. Nothing. A whisper. Faint. Just beyond the trees. Mia's stomach turned to ice. "Did you hear that?" Rachel and Sophie stiffened. The whispering grew louder, but it wasn't coming from one voice. It was many. Low and raspy, speaking in a language none of them recognized. Rachel grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight, aiming it into the trees. 3 figures stood just beyond the reach of the light. Women. Dressed in tattered, white nightgowns, their faces obscured by long, black hair. Their lips moved, whispering in unison. Rachel's breath hitched. "What the?" One of the women stepped forward. Her movements were unnatural, as if her limbs didn't bend the right way. Sophie scrambled for her phone. I'm calling for help." "No signal," Mia whispered, staring at the screen. "No bars. No service." The whispering turned into laughter, soft at first, then growing. The woman raised a bony hand and pointed at them. The laughter stopped. The car shook violently. The windows fogged up instantly, like something was breathing against the glass from the outside. Mia screamed. "Rachel, start the car." Rachel twisted the key. The engine roared to life. Without hesitation, she floored the gas. The tires screeched as the car shot forward, nearly veering off the road. Mia clutched the seat, heart hammering. She dared to look back. The women were still standing there, watching. Then, slowly, impossibly, they began to smile. Their mouths stretched too wide. Their teeth, jagged, sharp, gleamed in the darkness. Then they began to move. Not walking. Gliding. Their feet never touched the ground, yet they kept up with the speeding car. Mia squeezed her eyes shut. They're still there. Rachel slammed her foot on the gas, heart pounding as the speedometer climbed. The road twisted, turned, but no matter how far they drove, the figures stayed behind them. Then, suddenly, a figure appeared in the middle of the road. Rachel screamed and swerved. The car skidded off the dirt road and into the trees. The world spun as they crashed, metal crunching against wood. Then, silence. Mia's head was spinning. She was still in the car, seatbelt cutting into her chest. The windshield was cracked, and the front of the car was crushed against a massive tree. "Rachel?" Mia reached over. Rachel groaned. Blood trickled down her forehead, but she was alive. "Sophie?" No answer. Mia turned in her seat and gasped. Sophie was gone. The passenger door hung open, swinging slightly in the wind. Mia unbuckled her seatbelt with shaking hands. "We need to find her." Rachel coughed, wincing. She was just here." They climbed out of the car. The forest was eerily silent. No wind, no crickets. Just stillness. Then, a whisper. Mia turned slowly. Sophie stood a few feet away, her back to them. "Sophie?" Mia called. She didn't move. Rachel limped forward. "Sophie, are you okay?" Sophie's head snapped to the side. But her body didn't move. Mia's breath hitched. "Sophie." Then Sophie turned fully to face them. Her mouth was stretched into an inhuman grin. Her eyes, completely black. She took a step forward. Then another. Rachel grabbed Mia's wrist. "Run." Mia didn't hesitate. They bolted into the woods, branches clawing at their skin as they ran. Behind them, Sophie laughed. But it wasn't Sophie's voice anymore. It was theirs. The whispering surrounded them, echoing through the trees. More figures emerged, white gowns glowing in the darkness, their black eyes locked onto the fleeing girls. Rachel tripped. "Mia, help." Mia turned back, grabbing Rachel's arm, pulling her up. The figures were closer now, gliding through the trees. A hand reached out from the darkness, grasping Mia's shoulder. A voice whispered in her ear. "You were never supposed to leave." The world tilted, darkness swallowing them whole. Then, silence. The next morning, police found the wrecked car deep in the woods. The driver's seat was empty. The back seat was empty. And in the front passenger seat sat Sophie. Smiling. But her eyes were black. And she whispered softly to herself. Waiting. For the next traveler. For the next whisper in the woods. For the next victim.